The Madeleine McCann case was the biggest story around in the summer of 2007. News media organizations the world over descended on Praia da Luz, but there was a distinct absence of hard information.
There was a hard core of several of the British national newspapers, and a number of broadcasters would go backwards and forwards. They would all live in apartments around Praia da Luz, and they would all congregate in one particular bar, Hugo Beatty's, if you want to know. And that had the combination of alcohol and free Wi-Fi, so that therefore became the newsroom, clearly. And they would sit there and they'd read the Portuguese papers with an interpreter. Because the Portuguese police weren't talking to them, they had no other sources, and that was as good as a direct quote for them.
Rumour, allegation, they'd heard this in a bar, someone claimed this, someone leaked something supposedly from the Portuguese police, and it appeared as front-page news in Britain the next day. Absolutely horrendous.
The narrative had changed. The media weren't so much asking where the child was. Instead, Madeleine's parents were now facing increased scrutiny, particularly her mother.
I think, frankly, it was like they were rolling the dice each night whether they went to the press and saying, well, should we accuse her this time or say she's been wrongly accused? And it's hard enough to lose your child. It's a disgrace to be tortured by the press in your own country.
They'd phone me to say, what's this? Well, is this true? And I'd say, no, it's rubbish. And that was it. That was a balanced piece. And sometimes they'd run some rubbish from the Portuguese press, and that would mean more reporters were sent out from Britain, who'd then run more rubbish the next day. And then, as I say, the Portuguese would pick up on the British, and there was just this ridiculous recycling. I mean, they should win some green award for the recycling they did over there.
The media's continuing presence was disturbing the peace and quiet of this holiday resort.
The whole scene there totally changed from one of holiday villas, apartments, children running around having a laugh, parents walking their kids down to the supermarket, to huge, great big vans with satellite dishes on top, cables trained from one end of Ocean Club to the other, cameramen all over the place, paparazzi photographers just running for anybody who moved or breathed in the wrong direction. Just surreal.
It was some scene, but the media were going to need lots of fuel if they were to keep their story and sales afloat.
The story didn't dip in those first 2 weeks. We were still there in huge numbers, but I think on day 14 or day 15 since her disappearance, we realised that they hadn't arrested a suspect.
That soon changed.
Police do now have a suspect in the disappearance of 4-year-old Madeleine McCann.
They had a suspect who was questioned for almost 24 hours, I think, and then became an arguido. This is the first time that this phrase, arguido, official suspect, came up. That was a huge moment.
They had a suspect courtesy of one of the many journalists based in Praia da Luz.
It was on Monday, and I'd been at the scene quite a lot over the weekend on the Saturday and Sunday, and certain things about his behaviour just made me feel uneasy. So I spoke to my news desk in London, and they said that I ought to call the police to pass on suspicions.
Laurie Campbell, a reporter with the British Sunday Mirror newspaper, had gone to the police with her suspicions that Robert Murat, a British man living in the resort who'd been helping the police as a translator, was responsible for Madeleine's disappearance.
Various journalists, both UK, Portuguese, Spanish, all plied him with questions to try and get him to spill something. And he became extremely irritated by the whole thing. Not by the case, by the continued bombardment. And one of the first things that he said to me was, don't ask me to say anything, because I can't. I've had to sign the secrecy law.
We used to joke between us that perhaps this person did it, you know. He has a strange look, strange way of speaking, etc. But we kept it to ourselves, obviously, you know, because it's only a joke.
When she approached Robert Murat and did the same thing the other journalists have been doing, what can you tell me about the case? You know, what's been going on? What do you do? What, you know, what's your part in all this? And I think it was probably around about the time where he just snapped and said, I don't want anything to do with any of your da-da-da. and she felt compelled that he was something to do with Madeleine's disappearance and spoke to the PJ about it.
I don't think Robert was particularly short with the journalists or anything. I honestly think that the press realised they could make money out of it.
And Robert Murat suddenly becomes a witness, a suspect.
Campbell had reported on another high-profile case of 2 murdered children in England in 2002. She had interviewed their murderer, Ian Huntley, before he fell under suspicion. Robert Murat now attracted her attention. Having worked with the police, Robert Murat now found himself a suspect, and the media turned on him.
He is British, he is in his mid-30s.
A cordon remains today around the villa where former property developer Robert Murat lives.
Now his mother happened to live just 100 yards from the place where Madeleine McCann was last seen.
Robert was just so shattered. He lost loads of weight in the few weeks that followed, and he was just, you know, in bits, as anyone would be in that situation. To be thought of around the world as a paedophile murderer, all through no evidence at all.
Police say the chief suspect's house has a secret chamber.
It's like a small cellar, I suppose, with not a traditional door and steps leading down to it, but a trap door which may or may not have been covered by a carpet or some other covering.
As for the investigation, Robert Murat remains the only formal suspect, and his friends have attacked what they regard as a witch hunt.
He's greatly disappointed. I mean, overactive imaginations going on around here. It's very disappointing. And it doesn't help anybody. I don't see how that helps Madeleine at all.
Max Clifford is a publicist based in London. For years, he has made a career at the heart of British journalism, working the media to keep his clients either in or out of the limelight. 6 months ago, Clifford decided to take on Murat as a client.
Hello. I'm good. Mrs. Sophia. Hello.
Hello, how are you? Robert Murat's aunt, mother, called me many, many months ago saying we're being attacked by the British media, we're having our doors knocked down by the British media. We have nothing to say to them other than Robert is totally innocent. So initially it was just me stopping journalists, getting hold of editors of papers, say leave them alone.
As an Arguido, Murat is forbidden to speak to the media.
Hell is what it was like for them. It was just hell. And the hell for the McCanns as well, I would say, you know. But the McCanns invited the press. That's the difference. The Murats did not.
Recently, Robert Murat launched what may prove to be the largest libel claim in British legal history against 12 major media outlets over their coverage of him in the McCann case. We contacted the journalist who reported Murat to the police, but she refused to speak with us. Laurie Campbell's work on the Madeleine McCann case has resulted in her nomination at the British Press Awards for Journalist of the Year. Next, how the competitive instincts of the British media spawned both winners.
Those are the days that you sort of get excited about, and those are the days that you dream about, and those are a highlight of my career.
And losers.
And if you suspect us or something, then go to the courts or the king.
But if you could tell us about the journalist.
Okay, thank you, that's enough.